for a moment, and then we'll continue with Musaf in just a second in our Sidurim. But a thought before we continue. It's a long day with a lot of prayers, but I wanted to point out one piece of what we read. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the entire Torah, is this part of the book of Shemot. So to start us with, Skylar, I know, don't worry, it's not a pop quiz. You already became a bar mitzvah, you're good. What does every single Dungeons and Dragons game have to have in order? There's like 10 things it could be. What? A villain. Okay, we need a villain. What else do we need? We need a dungeon master. Okay, what else do we need? Dice. Yeah, we'll see. We'll get to that in a second. And the last thing, what? A cleric? Yeah, as a cleric myself, I agree. Yeah. A quest, a thing to do, right? A quest. Every hero story needs to have a goal or a quest, right? Odysseus has to try to get home. Galahad needs his grail, right? Harry Potter's got to find the Horcruxes. Taylor Swift has to find love. Like, we know that there's got to be a quest. By the way, this, in the longer version of the sermon, we could talk about whether or not the fact that she's found love is why the new album is maybe not as good as the other ones, but we can, okay, and that'll be for Kiddush, we can talk about that. The quest is something that is important, right? Because what? The quest gives us a goal. It gives definition to what the hero's values, desires, dreams are, what they're looking for, right? And it also is indicated by what Joseph Campbell calls the ultimate boon, right? What is the good thing that the hero is going to walk away with? So in the parsha that we read today, Moses says to God, right? To fill everyone in the moment, right? The golden calf has happened. Moses has saved the people, right? We're back in God's good graces. God sort of says, hey, good job. Can I do anything for you, right? What do you need? And Moses says, I want to see your face. Please, God, that's what I want, right? Show Hareini nat kavodcha, like show me your glory, right? That is what Moses' quest is, right? So the ultimate boon that we see is knowledge. It's connection. We don't know. We are going to look at what, so quickly, the different commentaries on the Torah span 1,000 years all have different ideas as to what it is that it means when Moses says, let me see your face. And when we look at them, we learn not necessarily anything about Moses in that moment, but we learn about the commentaries of their time and what they thought the project was of trying to find God, trying to see God. Right? So some of them say that it is literal. Right? Ibn Ezra says Moses wants to see God's face. What does his nose look like? What does his teeth look like? Right? What is God look like? Which we might think is a search for truth. Right? When we come here, we are looking for truth. We want to know what there is in the world. We want to know how the world works. Maimonides picks up on this and says, right, studying God is to study the heavens, is to study the world, is to study God's creation, right, is to study the world around us. Now, other rabbis come and say, no, of course, this isn't, we're not talking about seeing God's nose, right? We're talking about seeing God's glory. What does that mean? It means seeing whether or not God is going to build as well as destroy, says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, right? That what he's basically saying is we've only seen at this point up to now the destructive God, the fiery plagues God, the splitting the sea God, and Moses is saying, I want to see your face. I want to see the side of you that can create, that can do good. Are we going to see that side, God? And some of us, when we come to Shul, that's what we're thinking about also. Right? Religion for us is something that teaches us to build, to create, to build community, to build the world around us, right? And that is why we come to this place. And then another rabbi says that what Moses is really asking for is actually, are we going to be connected? He says, right, everyone else, according to the Shadal, right, he thinks, Abraham got a covenant, right? Everybody else got a promise moment with God, and Moses is saying, am I going to get one of those too? And that's another reason why we might come to a shul, to synagogue, because we're looking for connection with one another. We're looking for a connection with God, and we're looking to put ourselves into this historic covenant that our people have had for, thousands of years. And then the last one I want to point out is one of the later ones, but Kliakar, Rabbi Ephraim of Lunchitz, known as the Kliakar, he says, what God wants to see is the world, right? God wants to see what is the reward for all of this. Just kind of an astute read of the psychology of a person. Okay, God, you're asking me to do all this stuff, like new, what am I going to get out of it? And so seeing God's back is to see, according to Kliakar and the Midrash, God's tefillin, which is to see God's world, and a sign that part of the reward is the mitzvot that we do. But, says Kliakar, what happens at the end of this whole thing? When Moses comes down from the mountain, he is so radiant, right, that they have to cover his face up with a scarf, right, because the glow that comes off of his face is so bright. This holy light can't be seen by others, and that, Kliakar says, is the reward that he gets after he sees God's face. So, what does that tell you about what Kliakar wants out of religion? If the ultimate reward itself is Moses' inner light radiating out, this divine light coming out, it says that what he wants from his quest for God is to be changed fundamentally for having done the quest. The quest itself, the seeking for knowledge, the seeking for truth, the seeking for connection, the seeking to build, all of that is what needs to change us, because not even Moses gets to the end. Right? No one can see God's face and live. None of us can actually get to the grail or catch the car or whatever metaphor I forgot I started with. So what we can do is focus on the quest itself and let that change us. Because that's where we're all at in our lives. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out your path to adulthood, mazel tov, or if you've been here for 85 years. We are all still mid-quest, waiting for that quest to change us so that we can come away radiating out the truth and knowledge and connection that we have found here and in that path. If you want more, find me a Kiddush. With that, friends, Shabbat Shalom. We will